The Army is like a Mother by Ludwig Bemelmans. The army is like a mother. One cannot go hungry or without a bed. It is my home. I like the patients, and love some of them. In their illness they are so alone, and the madness, even when it is dangerous or unfortunately amusing, calls from me not pity, but some kind of respect. They seem more grave and interesting, stronger. They appear to me like actors with half their makeup on. The Army issues a book of a few pages in which almost all things are taken care of. Punishment and reward, advice and consequences, are written into sober paragraphs for the guidance of the men. The spirit of this book is the clearest in the advice given to non-commissioned officers on how to make men who have quarreled friends again. On this problem, the book states that the men are to be put to the duty of washing windows, one outside, the other inside, washing the same pane, looking at each other. They soon have to laugh, and all is forgotten. They push up half of the window and shake hands. It works. I have tried it. Soldiers are terribly childish and forgive easily because they have no rent, wife, insurance, etc. to worry them down. On the train back to Buffalo, I have many hours to think over the last days. Whenever I think of Julie, I feel as if I were back in the young days of my childhood, standing on my toes with arms back and face up, breathing deeply and singing, or looking into the clouds, without a wish other than that this happiness might last forever. Beardsley told me once that our dubious society, and mostly that in the West, was mothered by women out of such houses. The hard men that went out to settle the wild lands married them chiefly for the reason that women were then very scarce out there and even back here. I can understand that, and like it, even without the reason of scarcity. Immoral seems to me the breed of women like Mrs. Mirror, and undesirable girls like Ada. I have often seen open enmity and disgust in the faces of married people. I have seen so very seldom an unreserved frank admission in their eyes that they are glad of each other or even interested. In the subway in New York, I also remember the dreadful deadness and stare and the inner upset and drive that is clearly written in the way they sit and move their lips silently or look constantly as if they have forgotten something and were trying to remember where it was. Free of this seem only sailors, soldiers, some policemen, and most Negroes. They have privacy and seem not to care about much. Another thing I wondered about is how much they dislike any person that seems to be like themselves. In one train a man came in and sat down. He had a funny hat on and gaiters on his shoes, also a collar that was not the kind anybody wears. It stuck over his chin, left and right. He read a little book and blew his nose on a large blue handkerchief. The people who lined the seats along both walls watched him with displeasure from the moment he came in. Their eyes all swam over his shoes and up and down him as if he had stolen from them. I wish he would take a big gun out of his pocket and scare them to death. On the train up, I also have imperial ideas again. I think that America needs someone like our King Ludwig, who is a little mad, but made his country beautiful. Someone who has arrogant power and says, I want a wide avenue through the city of New York, 3 times as wide as Fifth Avenue, with lights, monuments, fountains, and parks. Who gets the finest artist, not one who ruins the scenery with bad work, but the best, no matter whether he be in Paris or anywhere. Make the Hudson beautiful, from the Palisades down, forbid such houses on Oxford Hill, and do away with the Jersey meadows. The Hudson is much more majestic than the Rhine. It is not always so beautiful, for the Rhine is lovely in the spring, because of the many trees in blossom that go down to the banks, and also because it winds much more, and of course the castles and ruins are nicer than the factories. All things that are for utility need not be ugly, and it can only be done with great and absolute power. Some people might lose something for a while, although there is no need even for that. But in the end, New York and America could be the most beautiful and proudest land in the world. But I fear it is a leftover to my German heritage and training. the wish to settle everything and have absolute order. Perhaps Mr. and Mrs. Mirror are happy and should be left alone in Oxford Hill, and so with everybody else. That is, I think, democracy, and besides, I have found that beautiful Dreck is really very fine. Think of Scranton and the trains racing through the Jersey marshes. Also the colored flames, the smoke from the lighting plants there, and the mist on the ground. It is just as well to leave it as it is. In New York, two detectives have brought a man on the train between them. He is handcuffed and looked somewhat like Mulvey. I no longer dislike Mulvey and his gang. They are rough, but I think out of having been made so. And I also think, in their way, they are honest. I am glad to go back to the hospital again. I am most happy to go back to the friendship of the little chaplain. I can see his gait always. He is so young that I can never get myself to call him father, and always get around it by saying either nothing or you. I cannot very well call him Philip yet. He is so young that he whips on his toes as he walks along, a very gentle motion in one sees in boys. They step as he does, touching the ground first with the front of the shoe, then with energy lifting the palm of the foot, and then the heel goes down. That walk is much of his person. I imitated him on a little walk, and he blushed and smiled. He is altogether good and fine, but he will not like my ideas on morality, and it will be best not to upset him with Polish Kate's house. And that is the end of The Army is Like a Mother.